Hello and welcome to Cindershadow Gaming. Today we're doing a Warhammer 40k discussion on the channel with a longtime friend of the channel. He sits down with me, lets me know his thoughts on the crossover that we're going to be having with Magic the Gathering. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. I'd love to hear your comments to this at the end, and we will talk to you guys all next time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel because there is more content like this. There always will be content. And I would muchly appreciate you take the time and subscribe today. Who are you and why do you play 40k?
I'm Crash Test, and I play 40k because it's fun more than anything. Everything from getting the miniatures to converting them so that they're more my own, to painting them in the schemes that I like to give them my own kind of spin and personality. I love the lore behind it all and the stories. They're just so gripping, and you can interpret them in 20 different ways and have wonderful discussions about them. Gameplay, it can be absolutely fun. The big thing that really makes it kind of interesting is the randomness of dice rolling.
Okay.
You can have the best army in the world up against the worst army in the world, but if those dice hate you, you haven't got a chance that day. The dice decide all.
Talking about dice, how many dice have you put into a shame pot or have you destroyed in shame?
Many a dice has now been melted or has disappeared from existence. How dare they betray me?
Well, we I get it when you play Dungeons and Dragons. I've had
Yeah.
dice where I've sat there and I've wanted to just blow them up because you can't do anything right with those dice, and yeah,
No.
you just have those bad luck days.
Yeah. In fact, I've got a great story about the dice if you want.
Sure.
So many years ago, there was a worldwide Warhammer campaign going on called the Eye of Terror,
Okay.
where Abaddon the Despoiler, leader of the Chaos Legions, was the big bad, and he was taking on the world and in trying to invade Terra and Earth again. Worldwide, on a weekend, every game store was holding a massive event where everybody could bring their armies, doesn't matter what it is, bring it down, and we're having a massive melee game. So, a standard game is 2,000 points. We're talking 150, 200,000 point game going on here.
Crazy.
And this is in every game store across the world. Okay. In this game, one of the models was the leader, Abaddon the Spoiler, and he was being championed by one of the staff members, the manager actually of the store at the time. And in the game, the good guys, the allies, as it were shooting everything they had. So we've got tanks, we've got Titans, we've got Hydras, we've got Guardsmen, you name it. They were throwing their firepower at the Chaos Army, but more specifically, they were trying to just kill Abaddon, who was right at the front. At the end of the turn, the kind of general of the good side, he's doing a tally going, what have we got? What have we got left? What have we got left? Because Abaddon was down to his last wound. So one more failed armor save and he was gone, as it were. So he was doing a massive tally and it was like, nope, they've all shot. Right, okay. Wait there. That guardman, he hasn't shot. So we've got a medic with a las gun. A las gun is otherwise known as a flashlight because it's terrible.
Okay.
It's the last weapon on the board to be shot. And it's being shot by a medic who is the worst shot in the world anyway. So he needs a 5+ to hit. He hits. He needs a 6 to wound. He gets a 6. Abaddon has a 2+ armor save. Anything but a 1, and he's fine. Of course, the manager goes, Abaddon fears not the lowly lasgun, and rolls a 1.
Of course.
At that point, eruption. Absolute eruption. We're talking celebration, commiseration, laughter, the works. All because of a lovely dice going, no.
Yep. Nope, not gonna happen.
That was just a perfect moment. And that is an example of the hobby and why I can really love it.
Okay.
It's those little moments like that that really stick with you. And that was from when I was, 15?
Would you consider yourself a Warhammer 40k expert?
No. I would say I am a very impassioned and enthusiastic hobbyist.
Okay. How much do you play? How much do you get to play for 40k?
At the moment, nothing, obviously.
Yeah. But before the world event, how often were you playing?
When I was playing it at my height, I was probably doing it at least twice a week. And an average game would be 3 hours, I'd say.
Okay, so long, not as long as a Risk game, but as long as a Monopoly game.
Yeah. Nowadays, you can probably crack a game in about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, just the change of rules and stuff. And obviously, at the moment, nothing, but it's the same everywhere. And in the UK, it looks like we won't be able to do any sort of like mass events with that sort of stuff for quite some time. April at the earliest, but more likely June, July, I'd say.
Okay, so mainly what is 40k?
All right. So Warhammer, Warhammer the game was originally fantasy based. So it was a fantasy world with elves and goblins and men and ogres and stuff like that. 40k is like a future version, almost. The tagline of 40k is, in the grim future, there is only war. Lore-wise, what happened is there was a man known as the Emperor of mankind. He rose to power and tried to create a vast empire and bring the imperial truth to the empire, which is science and forward thinking and all of this lot. He did this by creating super soldiers, known as Space Marines, basically. He had the first 20 of these super soldiers were called the Primarchs, and they were like the super soldiers. So these were the dads of all of the Space Marines. Now, through some trickery, they got cast out into the universe and landed on different planets, a bit like Superman does. And so they spent the first 30 years of their life growing up on different planets. And so they kind of grew up with different thoughts, different feelings, different traits, and all of this lot. So oh god, I can't remember the name. One of them, the head of the Night Lords, he grew up on a very dark planet, so of course goes very well with being the Night Lords and stuff like that. Eventually, the Emperor finds all 20-ish, and he brings them back to Terra, so Earth, and he creates the Space Marine legions from them, from their gene seed. So basically wanks them off to get their cum. From that, that's how the Space Marines came about. Now, in the warp, or in the universe, there's this thing called Chaos and the 4 gods of Chaos, which is Zeech, Nurgle, Slanesh, and Khorne. They like to play trickery and, generally mess things up. And so they were able to corrupt a couple of these Primarchs, and it created this giant civil war, essentially. So then you had the Imperium with the God Emperor of Mankind on one side, and then you had the heretics or the legions of chaos on the other. War happens, lots of death, killing, murder, the works, and essentially, to skip over a lot of the detail, the Emperor is critically wounded and now has to sit on a giant golden throne using his psychic powers to hold back the evils of chaos entirely. Meanwhile, Horus, who was the leader of the Chaos Lot, got killed. There you go.
Okay, that's a lot of detail for a a game out there. It's a miniature game, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's way more. I am cutting a lot of the information here.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, so the Emperor is essentially now kind of a glorified lighthouse, because to travel through space in the warp, they need a reference point, and so because of his psychic power, he acts as the central point lighthouse for the Imperium. So everyone knows where everything is because of him. So if he eventually snuffs it completely, they're screwed. No more warp travel, no more space travel.
Okay.
Now, when this happened and the Emperor kind of got zombified, everything kind of came to a bit of a standstill. Everything kind of got lost. Now, the imperial truth was there is no God, there is no religion, there is only science and the future. Now, ironically, after the Emperor got put on his throne permanently, it kind of became a religion to worship the God Emperor of Mankind. Now there's entire legions of mankind that worship the Emperor as a god, which is ironic considering he wanted to get rid of religion.
Oh, jeez. You try and get rid of the one thing, that's what you become the most, usually, is what happens.
Exactly. From this spurred off and created something called the Sisters of Battle. So they're like female Space Marines, essentially, because all Space Marines have to be male. It's just part of the law.
While you're going over it there, I'm rereading the article again. And they're talking about Warhammer 40k commander decks.
So here's the thing that really kind of messes it up. I mean, commander decks are possible because as a commander, you can have main characters from main factions. So you've got all the Primarchs from the Space Marines and the Chaos Space Marine. That makes sense. You've even got like characters from the Orcs and the Eldar. So you can have like the Avatar of Cain from Eldar. You can have Graggle Snaggle Snack or something. Scargill, can't remember. He's from the Orcs. So yeah, you can easily translate that over. No problem.
Okay, and they're also talking about the Godzilla's secret lair and stuff with Ikoria. I don't know if we'll get reskinned characters out of this.
I don't know. I mean, the main thing that kind of really clashes in my head is the way that the level of detail, and B, the topic of 40k, as it were. How will that match up to the Magic the Gathering world?
Yeah, it's very strange and indeed for what I'm seeing. Having what is described as Space Marines being on a Magic the Gathering card. Now, part of me wonders if this is going to go more so the other way, where 40k or Warhammer 40k is going to make models for Jace, Chandra, for all the Planeswalkers, the Gatewatch, and have their own little faction that would be possible with the rules between the two games to be able to play.
So making models wouldn't be a problem. because like Warhammer, Games Workshop have actually recently signed a contract with the United States Marine Corps to exclusively make a type of miniatures and rules for them to use.
That's awesome.
Because what they found was it was better if their like officer training corps to do war games, if they actually liked have rules like in paper version and take care of their models and things like that. It shows precision, determination, things like that, and also being able to play it on a tabletop and have like random chance with rolling dice and stuff like that. That would be more effective for learning than, say, Total War, you know, the game.
Yeah.
Because on a screen, you do it and it just goes out your head the next second. It's like horror movies. People aren't scared by anything anymore because of horror movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you don't think of it. Whereas tabletop game, it sticks with you. I mean, I could tell you about games that I did 20 years ago. What does that tell you? But I couldn't tell you necessarily about a film that I watched a year ago.
Yeah.
And so when you're learning tactics and wargaming, which do you want in your Marine? Exactly. So that's what. So creating the miniatures for them wouldn't be a problem. Creating a rule set for them to work. I mean, I suppose you could, because like in 40k you have psychers and librarians and weird boys. So that could be the equivalent of magic. But then it comes down to the whole faction and the story intertwining thing. Magic the Gathering is quite light and fluffy, let's be honest.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering to me is more, yes, it's high fantasy, but it's swords and sorcery high fantasy, not sci-fi and outer space high fantasy.
But it's also very PG.
Yeah.
At best. And
Warhammer, from what I've seen, is a lot more of the more attractive to adults that want something as a true hobby, where you sit there, you paint, you make up your troops, and learn
it's
a
completely
game.
completely different strategies and parts of the hobby, but also storyline. I mean, your average kid, 14-year-old, doesn't really care a lot about the storyline. And in fact, that's one of the major ways that Games Workshop get people involved, get the kids involved. They usually have like some sort of really cool big thing in the window. And it's how I got involved. It was a 12-foot Space Marine in the window, and I was walking past and I went, "What is that?
I must have that.
That is cool, man. It's a 12-foot Space Marine. Ah!" And I went in and I was hooked. That's how I first got into Warhammer, when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, I've seen them all. I haven't really had the best experience when I go into a Games Workshop, so it's not been one of those things that I've sat there and picked up.
No, it's not for everyone, I'll be honest. But, so that's one way, but a lot of people enjoy the hobby. They go, "Oh, that's cool, I want to get involved that way." Now, someone like me who, wants to go a bit further, shall we say, I've looked into the lore, the history, the stuff like that, because the whole thing, I mean, the two guys who started it, they were massive D&D nerds.
Yeah.
That's how Warhammer first came about, because of D&D, essentially. And they created this beautiful, history, lore, everything. And they did it for fantasy, and then they did it for 40k. And the stories are amazing, the detail is amazing, but also it's the topics. That's where there's a clash, because let's just say they're not necessarily kid friendly. Prime example of this would be the birth of the chaos god of Slaanesh. Okay, so Slaanesh is one of the chaos gods who was created. It burst into existence and created what is known as the Eye of Terror, which is a giant tear in space and time. across the universe where all now demons inhabit and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Slanesh was created because the Eldar races, which was one of like the very first races, they live practically forever. And so the Eldar were also highly intelligent, highly psychic, highly everything. And they created a society that was so technologically advanced that everything was done for itself, essentially. And of course, when a society has all of its necessities automatically taken care of, they've got free time. Lots of it. And then with that free time, they pursued, shall we say, well, it started off, they pursued arts and crafts and perfection of this and that. Then, of course, that gets boring. So they go on to the next thing and the next thing. And essentially, their whole society ended in a hedonistic rape, blood, murder orgy.
Oh, jeez.
The whole the whole race is in some sort of, because there's nothing else. It's all about finding the next new experience, and if you've done everything for the last 2,000 years, what's left? Well, I've got this. So because of all of this might, and you've got all this psychic energy, you've got rape, sex, drugs, rock and roll, murder, all simultaneous in some cases. It created Slanesh, and Slanesh is now considered the god of pleasure, the god of ecstasy, the god of pain, and all of everything weird and wonderful in this world. Hence why I'm doing that army, because I love it.
So would you say that the Warhammer crossover going to be kid-friendly?
It'll have to be, because how can you... I mean, even Games Workshop have distanced themselves a little bit from that stuff over the years. But how would you then translate that into the world of MTG?
Yeah.
Even explain something like that. Even
what, I guess, what would you expect to see as a Magic card? Like, we have a Space Marine, but what will it be? Would it be a creature? What would it be? Warrior?
I suppose you'd have something like Space Marine, creature, Astartes. It would be something like, I don't know, 4/4.
What
if it was Ultramarine, it would be blue.
Okay.
Because all Ultramarines are blue.
Because isn't the Space Marine the most basic unit?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, so to me...
Your Space Marine is your average unit, but Space Marines are supposed to be the height of geneticism.
Yeah,
and
so
they're superhumans.
It should come down to probably a 2/2 with an ability, or maybe a 2/3.
Yeah,
when it comes down to it as a basic unit.
Something like that. Yeah, orcs, you'd probably have something like a 3/1 with haste.
Yeah.
They're hard as nails and they run in there, but they die.
Yeah.
Imperial Guard, they're basically humans, or Astra Militarium. They'd be like 1/1 basic guys with some sort of ability, that you pay for, like a boast ability or something like that.
Okay.
Chaos, God knows what you can do for them. You'd have to theme them, because you've got Khorne, the god of war, and the god of battle, as it were. Slanesh, the god of excess. Nurgle, the god of pestilence. And Tzeentch, the god of magics and trickery and time and all of that.
Yeah, so they would have their own pantheon that could easily transfer over.
So yeah, the themes of stuff are easily translatable. It's the storylines that will not match up in any way, shape, or form. I mean, like that meme I did yesterday.
Yeah, I saw the one of Jace. Yeah.
So, and a Titan.
This is probably going to be more like getting reskinned characters like the Godzilla set was, more than their own set, is from what you're telling me right now.
It's the only way you can do it, because you wouldn't be able to match it up. Even the power levels. I mean, a standard Space Marine bolter, like one shell is like, oh, I don't know. This is where my gun knowledge goes bad. What's quite a big caliber?
Oh, I couldn't tell you because I know nothing about guns. Me
All
being a
right.
Canadian, we don't generally do anything with them except go hunting every once in a while.
I know. So a single Space Marine bullet in a bolter would be about the size of a Coke can.
Oh, yeah, that's not a bullet, that's a grenade.
That's what they call a small bullet, and it has explosiveness inside it. So it'd be like a hollow point that also explodes, and that's considered a basic weapon in the world of 40k.
Thank you for letting me do this little bit of a talk about Warhammer 40K. It gives me a little bit more ideal. For the game that I don't know much about,
Yeah,
it gives me a little bit of an insight.
no problem. Thank you very much.
Is there anything that you want people to know, a channel or stuff like that? I can
Yeah,
link it.
just like and subscribe, Cindershadow, and spread the word of Desolator Magic. And if you want to check out more about Warhammer, check out Major Kill
Okay.
and Looting.
Well, there you go. Well, thank you for that.
No problem. You have a lovely day.
Yeah, you too.